Futurist Proclamation to the Spaniards by F.T. Marinetti. I dreamt about a great people. Undoubtedly it was of you Spaniards. I saw them advancing from one epoch to the next, conquering the mountains, rising ever higher toward the great light that glows beyond inaccessible peaks. From on high at the zenith, in my dreams, I contemplated your numberless, heavily laden ships, making long processions like ants over the green meadows of the sea, linking one island with another, like so many ants' nests, heedless of the storms, those terrible footsteps of a god of which you have no fear. As for you, builders of cities, soldiers, and farmers, you were going at a goodly pace, making progress, yet trailing along behind you a procession of women, children, and treacherous monks. And it was this rearguard which betrayed you, drawing down upon your army on the march all the sultry atmosphere of Africa, all its ethereal witches and panderers, who hatched their plots in the dark ravines of the Sierra Nevada. A thousand noxious breezes spied upon your passage, and a thousand mellow springtimes, with their vampire wings, lulled you into voluptuous sleep. And at once the wolves of lust howled deep within their woods. In the slow rosy breath of evening, the men with their kisses crushed the naked women they held in their arms. Maybe they hoped to drive the stars mad with jealousy, the unattainable, far-off stars, lost in the abyss of night. Or maybe the fear of dying spurred them on to repeat their death games endlessly upon their love beds. Certainly the last flames of hell which were dying down licked the backs of the men as they labored devotedly upon the lovely, insatiable cunts. And in the meantime the old Christian sun was dying in a mass of clouds, all streaked with blood, which suddenly exploded, vomiting forth, all red and seething, the French Revolution, that formidable storm of justice. For a long time, in that deluge of liberty, in which all the paths of authority were at last swept away, you cried out your anguish to those sneaking monks who cautiously circled about your immense wealth. And there they were, bending over you and mumbling, "Children, come, come with us into the cathedral of God. It is ancient, yet still solid. Enter into the fold, O little sheep. Shelter in this fold. Listen to the ever-loving, blessed bells, whose sounds ripple like the rounded flanks of the women in Andalusia. We have covered the altars of the Madonna with violets and roses. The half-light of our chapels is as mysterious as that of the nuptial chamber. The flames of our candles are like the carnations that smile between the teeth of your indolent women. Come. You shall have love, perfumes, gold, and silks, and you shall even have singing, for the Virgin is indulgent." On hearing these words you took your eyes off the fathomless constellations, and immense fear of the firmaments propelled you into the starved porticos of the cathedral, beneath the mellifluous sound of the organ, which made you bend the knee absolutely. And now what do I see? In the impenetrable darkness of the night, the cathedral quakes beneath the anger of a pelting rain. Everywhere, with the utmost difficulty, a suffocating terror raises up enormous slabs of darkness. The tempest, with its desolate cry, accompanies the endless wailing of the organ, and every now and then their mingled sounds are drawn out into a painful clangor. It is the walls of the cloister that are crumbling. Spaniards, Spaniards, whatever did you expect, held down as you were by fear, with your faces bent low beneath the infectious stench of incense and rotting flowers, in the nave of this cathedral, this foul tomb that cannot save you, Christian livestock, from the deluge, nor lead you to heaven? Arise, clamber up to your great glass windows still smeared with mystical moonlight, and gaze upon the spectacle of all spectacles, and behold the sudden uprising wonder, higher even than the ebony-colored Sierras. Electricity, the sublime, the unique, divine mother of future humanity, her body glowing of vivid silver, electricity with her thousand flashing, violet-colored arms. See, just see, how she hurls her diamond thunderbolts from all sides, youthful, dancing, naked, speeding up, winding, azure stairways on the attack, storming the black cathedral. There are more than 10,000 of them, trembling, exhausted, throwing themselves into the assault in the rain, striding over the walls, darting here and there, biting into the smoking ironwork of the guttering and dipping madly, smashing the stained glass Madonnas in the windows. But you are shaking on your knees like trees uprooted in a flood. On your feet, let the oldest among you make haste to lift the best part of your wealth onto their shoulders. For the others, the younger ones, a task that is much more congenial. Are you the ones in your 20s? Fine, then listen to me. Brandishing solid gold candelabras, using them like swirling cudgels to smash in the heads of the monks and priests. Bloody poultices, crimson wadding to stop up the holes in the vaulting and in the broken windows. A bleeding scaffold of deacons and archdeacons, archbishops and cardinals, stuffed in one after another, with their arms and legs woven together, will hold up the sagging walls of the nave. And move then, before the triumphant thunderbolts hurl themselves on you to punish you for your age-old sins. For you are guilty of the crime of living in a trance, in a dream world. You are guilty of never having wanted to live, and of having tasted death merely in tiny sips. You are guilty of having stifled your own spirits, the desire for and pride in, conquest beneath the sad pillows of love, nostalgia, lust, and prayer. And now break down the fittings of the doors that squeak away on their living hinges. The beautiful land of Spain lies before you, all parched with thirst and pounded by a pitiless sun. She shows you her belly, all burnt and shriveled. Run, run to her therefore, and offer her your aid. Whatever are you waiting for? Ah, I see, there's a ditch in your way, the great medieval moat that defended the cathedral. All right then, fill it up, you old men, by throwing in all the riches that are weighing you down. Away they go, everything into it all at once. Religious pictures, immortal statues, the guitars that moan away in the moonlight, all the shabby stuff your ancestors revered. Precious metals and woods. The moat is too wide. Haven't you anything left with which to fill it up? Well then, it has to be you. Make the sacrifice. Down you go, one after the other. Your piled up, decrepit bodies will prepare the way for the great hope of the world. And you, young men, full of courage, pass over them. Now what's wrong? Another obstacle? What? It's only a cemetery. Come on now, away you go across it, as fast as your legs will carry you, like a bunch of students on a binge. Trample the lawns, overturn the crosses and the tombstones. That'll make your ancestors laugh. They'll be laughing with Futurist joy, happily, crazily, happy feeling themselves trampled over by feet that are more powerful than their own. But what's that you're carrying? Are they hoes? Get rid of them. They've never dug anything other than graves. To turn over the earth of the delirious life, you'll be forging new ones, fusing together the gold and silver of the religious offerings. At last, at long last, your liberated gaze can move about untrammeled beneath the vast revolutionary unfurling of the flags of the dawn. The rivers, unconstrained, will show you the way. The rivers that are finally setting loose their silky green foliage of coolness over the earth from which you have swept away all the clerical rubbish. For the Spaniards, be well advised, by pouring down its ruins upon you, the old Catholic heaven has unwittingly impregnated the aridity of your great central plateau. To assuage your thirst during your zealous march, bite your lips until they bleed. Those lips they would still be inclined to praise so as to learn how to control a Slavish destiny. March forward. You must break the habit of your aching knees, kneeling on the ground. For now you will not bend them any more, except to crush your former confessors, those quaint-seeming hassocks. They are suffering agonies. Can you not hear them? Beneath these collapsing stones and the heavy crashing of the landslide, which together mark the beat of your steps. But woe betide you if you look back. The old black cathedral may well gradually fall into ruin, with its mystical windows and its vaulting full of holes, fittingly stopped up with its stinking poultice of monks and priests. Futurist conclusions. The progress of contemporary Spain will not take place without the establishment of agrarian and industrial wealth. Spaniards, you will undoubtedly achieve this by means of communal and regional autonomy, 60 million pesetas drawn from religious and clerical funds. For this reason, you have to eradicate clericalism entirely, with no half measures, as well as destroy Carlism, its natural extension, partner, and defender. The monarchy, ably defended the Canalejas, is currently engaged in precisely this fine piece of surgery. If the monarchy fails to complete the task, and if the prime minister of his successors turns out to be weaklings or traitors, then it will be the turn of the radical socialist republic, led by Leroux and Iglesias, whose revolutionary hand will cut more deeply, maybe even terminally, into the poisoned flesh of the country. In the meantime, politicians, men of letters, and artists must work unstitingly with their books, their speeches, their conferences, and their journals to transform completely the intellectual tenor of Spain. 1. To achieve this, they will have to promote national pride in all its forms. 2. To defend and develop the sense of dignity and the freedoms of the individual. 3. To cultivate and glorify the triumph of science and its everyday heroism. 4. To make a clear-cut distinction between the ideas of nation, a powerful army, and the possibilities of war. On the one hand, from the idea of a reactionary priest-ridden monarchy. On the other, 5. To fuse the ideas of nation, powerful army, and the possibilities of war with those of progress and an unfettered proletariat, as well as educating the proletariat to a sense of patriotism. 6. To bring about a transformation, without destroying them, of the quintessential qualities of the Spanish race, by which we mean a love of danger and struggle, fearless courage, artistic inspiration, a haughty arrogance, and the light dexterity that crowned your poets, singers, dancers, your Don Juans, and your matadors with glory. All of these abundant energies can be channeled into laboratories and workshops, onto the land, the sea, and the sky, through the endless triumphs of science. 7. To fight against the tyranny of love, the obsession with the ideal woman, the drug of sentimentalism, and the monotonous battles of adultery that exhaust men of 25. 8. To defend Spain from the greatest dangers and from the gravest of all intellectual diseases, that of clinging to the past, by which is meant the methodical, stupid cult of the past, the foul trade in nostalgia for the past. Be assured, absolutely, O Spaniards, that the former glories of Spain will be absolutely nothing in comparison with the Spain that your futurist hands will one day create. It is simply a question of will that you have to resolve, by brutally breaking the vicious circle of priests, bullfighters, the singers of serenades in which you still live. In your country, you complain that the youths in your dead cities are free to hurl stones at the precious stone traceries of your Alhambras, at the ancient inimitable windows of your churches. How ridiculous! Give sweets to those public-spirited youths, for they are saving you, without intending to, from the most shameful and mischievous of industries, that of exploitation of foreigners. As for the millionaire tourists, feckless, wide-eyed voyeurs who sniff out the tracks of great men of action, amusing themselves sometimes by putting some ancient warrior's helmet on their thin skulls, you should despise them all, with their small talk full of rubbish, and their cash with which can make you rich. Prevent them from coming to visit this Spain of yours, as they come and visit Rome, Venice, Florence, idealized cemeteries. I'm well aware that there are those who do their best to dazzle you with the promise of huge profits, and who could set you up as experts in the business of trading your glorious past. Well, spin on them, turn your head away. You Spaniards are fit to be heroic warriors, not just guides, ponces, picture copiers, restorers of ancient paintings, stuffy archaeologists, and manufacturers of forged masterpieces. Take good care you don't draw down on Spain the grotesque caravans of cosmopolitan moneybags, who parade their empty-headed snobism and their vexing stupidity, their morbid thirst for nostalgia, and their Roman cocks, instead of using their utmost strength and their wealth to construct the future. Your hotels are atrocious. Your cathedrals are crumbling. So much the better, so much the better. Rejoice in it, rejoice. What you need is great commercial ports, industrial cities, fertile countryside irrigated by your great rivers, which still remain unharnessed. It's not your ambition, as far as I can tell, to turn Spain into a Baedeker land. a high-class holiday playground with 1,000 museums and 100,000 panoramic views and ruins, and to do all this of your own free will. In April 1909, Prometeo published a Spanish translation of the Foundation and Manifesto of Futurism. A few months later, its translator, Ramon Gomez de la Serna, commissioned for Marinetti a crushing and scourging proclamation to Spain, which he received in the early autumn of 1910. In issue 19 of Prometeo, dated July 1910, but printed much later, Gomez de la Serna announced this new manifesto for the flowing number, together with a note from Marinetti, saying that the text contained all my anguished observations, made on a car journey across Spain, centered for the most part on the tragic aridity of your central tableland of Castile. The Proclama Futurista e la Españole appeared in Prometeo 20, dated August 1910, but published well into the autumn of that year, preceded by an introduction by Gomez de la Serna. It was also printed as a 16-page booklet, with a small woodcut illustration on the title page, in the colophon Madrid, Prometeo, 1911, and in the volume F.T. Marinetti al Futurismo, Valencia, Sempere, 1912. It was published in Italy as Against Traditionalist Spain in I Manifesti del Futurismo, 1914, and in a revised edition with a number of stylistic variants under the title Futurist Proclamation to the Spaniards in Guerra sola e Guiene del Mondo, 1915.